This is episode number 57 of Road Noise, life 1 mile at a time. Hello and welcome again to another episode of Road Noise, life 1 mile at a time. This episode is Be the Man, episode number 57, and I'm your host, Michael Blackston. You're sitting alongside me in the passenger seat as we travel all over the Southeast doing my work as a granite etcher. Well, you're not going to be doing the work, I'm going to be doing the work, but while we commute, you're here with me. If you hear something under the sound of my voice, it's just the noise from the road, hence the reason I call it road noise. So that's what that sound is, and after the last couple of episodes, which were fairly heavy, I thought I might want to do something comical, and I really just couldn't come up with anything funny. And so I have been thinking about, in the past couple of weeks, an episode about Be the Man. And so that's what this episode is titled. And it's all about fatherhood and being the man that you want your daughter to marry and being the man that you want your son to be as a husband and father. And then in a future episode, I'm not sure if it'll be the next one or not, but in a future episode I'm going to talk about how to be the woman that you want your daughter to be when she grows up, and the wife being a model for the wife you would like your son to connect with as he grows up and starts looking for a mate. And I believe that even though I am a man, I'm qualified to talk about that, and when that episode comes around, I'll tell you why. But this one's about how to be a man, and I'm calling it Be the Man. As a child, I grew up with the father. My father was always there. He was always around to support us. But my father's always been the kind of guy, he's kind of a loner. He does things to himself, and I don't know if it's just because I have his DNA or if it was something that I kind of learned because of that, but I'm very much the same type of person. I enjoy my alone time. I'm very much an introvert. I love being with people, but I need some downtime to recharge, and I enjoy having some time alone. And I think that's why I've been a little bit successful as a traveler. But I believe that if you really want your son or your daughter to have a good example of what a real man is like, then you need to model it for them. Are you a father? If you're a father, you probably already know a lot of what I'm going to talk about, but it's still good to hear it. If you're not a father yet, and you think maybe you will be one day, this is good language to kind of keep in the back of your mind as you start trying to build your family, because being a present father, it's not enough to be a father, it's not enough to be a husband. You've got to be present. You've got to be in the lives of your family. And so today we're going to talk about setting a positive example for your daughter so that when she grows up, perhaps she will look for a man like you, because that's what she knows to be good. And as a son, as your son grows up, that you represent the type of model of a father that you would like him to be, and a husband that you would like him to be, that is good and strong and a good leader. So I've already said that you need to set a positive example. So that's kind of the overall blanketing rule of this whole discussion that we're going to have today. And under that umbrella, I made, guess what, 7 points, bullet points to talk about that I think are good starting points and basic tenets of being a good father and a good role model for your children. So you need to remember that children frequently connect with those that exhibit behavior that they're familiar with. Often you'll see that abused children end up in abusive relationships because it's what they're used to. They may not have enjoyed it, but it's all they know. So if they're in that all their lives and that becomes the norm, then they don't have a good representation of what a good norm is. And a lot of times you'll see abused children find themselves in abusive relationships or even being abusers themselves. They tend to mimic what is modeled to them. So here are the 7 things that I think we need to keep in mind when it comes to being a good father, to raise our children up in the way that we would like them to be, or for our daughters the mate that we would like them to have, that we would feel safe sending them out of our homes and into their home. So number one, I think, is responsibility. Model what it means to be a responsible adult. I know so many fathers who are just more like children. Their wives take care of everything and they're just irresponsible. And I understand that that could be a product of how they were raised. But a man takes responsibility. A man stands up for his family. A man works hard. Unless you're in a situation to where you've just got a windfall of inheritance or something like that, and you don't really have to work, then maybe that doesn't apply when it comes to career. But you still have opportunities to model responsibility and work ethic to your children. And that's what you want for your daughter, isn't it? Don't you want your daughter to find a man who is going to be responsible, to have a J-O-B, to keep a J-O-B, to be responsible enough that if he's going to change J-O-Bs, that he keeps the one he has before he jumps out on a limb? I had to learn some of these lessons the hard way. I've always had a work ethic, but I really didn't know how to put it into application until I was a little bit older, and then everything suddenly clicked. I became my own boss. I started my own company, and the realities of life and the responsibility that goes with that kind of came along with it. And I have grown up a lot over the past few years that I've run my own company. And my dad actually taught me a lot of that. He's always been there. He's always been in the back of my mind and a little voice in my ear when it came down to doing the right thing and keeping my family above water, being responsible. And I thank my dad for that. My mom had a lot to do with that too. She was a single mother raising us most of her life, but my dad was there with that. My stepdad also had a great hand in teaching me that from my teen years on up into adulthood and early adulthood when I got married and moved out of the house. I had those models, and I think that a man needs to be those models for their daughter to understand this is the type of man you want. Yeah, you have the right in the choice of who you connect with. That's between you and your heart. But who she connects with, who she's attracted to, how you modeled manhood will come into play. And so if you want her to attract the right kind of man, you've got to be the right kind of man. So be responsible. Same thing with your son. You want him to grow up to be the kind of father and husband who is responsible and keeps those things in mind and always is ready to stand up and take responsibility. So number one is responsibility. Number two, language and temper. And now I'm not talking about cursing. Of course, while that certainly does apply, if you're constantly sending out tirades of curse words to your son or daughter, then it's what they're going to grow up with as the norm. And if you don't want that, then don't do that. But I'm talking about further than that. When I say language and temper, I'm talking about the words you use on a normal basis, your regular words, your tone. Whether or not you fly off the handle at any given moment about little nitpicky things. And this is something that I have to point a finger at myself about. If I'm in a bad mood, I can have a bad temper. And I try very hard to keep that in check. And I recognize most of the time when that's happening, Kayla will call me out on it and tell me, you're being snippy, you don't need to snap at us. And I'll try to remember, and I will actually then at those times go and apologize to my son and even my 3.5-year-old daughter. There have been a couple of times where I've not necessarily been so nice to her when she was pressing me, as 3-year-olds can do, and that's all she knows to do because she's 3 years old. And I snapped at her, made her cry. I don't remember what the specific situation was, but I just do remember that I had to come back and say, baby, I'm so sorry. Daddy didn't mean to snap at you, and I'm sorry I did I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. And she's 3 years old. That was okay. We got our hug. She said, "That's okay, Daddy." But it was a teachable moment for her. I want that to stick. I want her to find a man who uses a controlled temperament and language of love and tenderness toward her. And if things do blow out of proportion, I want her to have a man and choose a man that is not afraid to own it and say, "I'm sorry," and mean it. I'm sorry those are two of the hardest words in the English language for a person to speak, and especially to mean, because we all think we're right. But I wanted her to understand that I meant it, and that was a modeling experience for me towards her. Same thing with my son. I try to speak in a controlled manner, even when I'm angry with him. I try not to yell. I try to be stern, but at the same time in control, to model that for him so that he'll pick that up and carry that on to his own children and the people that he's around. So language and temperament, it's a big deal. And it's not just with your children. They need to see you modeling these elements to your wife. They need to see that a real man loves his wife, treasures her, honors her, respects her. And even though you will not agree on everything, they need to see you being controlled, and even in disagreements, they need to hear that in your disagreement that you still love them. They'll catch on, and it's something they'll apply to the rest of their lives. Number 3, quality time. So I just got a question for you there, dads. How much time are you willing to spend with your children? Are you the dad who comes home from a hard day and walks back into your room, cuts on the TV and props your feet up and says, "I've had a hard day, leave me alone"? Or are you willing to sacrifice how tired you are to have a tea party with your daughter, if she's of the age to do that? Or let her braid your hair. Most dads aren't going to have hair long enough to braid, but I do know a couple of them. Put makeup on you, Dad. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do those things with your daughter that show her you love her enough that you are willing to put aside your weariness and spend time, quality time that makes them happy, just because you enjoy spending time with them? My son loves to play board games. We bought Monopoly the other day. I like Monopoly. My wife doesn't care too much for board games, and she really kind of despises Monopoly, I think, but he loves it. And we didn't have a set. And he asked the other day, could we go buy some? And he and I have been playing a lot of Monopoly. In fact, we've got a 2 or 3 night game, a single game that has just been going back and forth over and over, and we make notes at the end of the night when it's his bedtime. And it's certainly not something we've done every single night, because there are things I have to do, and he understood that. But when I can, and he asks, can I play, I'll say, yeah, baby, I'll spend some time with you. It's hard for me a lot of times, especially if I've just come home from a 5-hour drive, and I've worked all day before that. I am tired and ready to hit the sheets, but there are times, if I get home early enough, that I need to spend time with my family and show them that it doesn't matter how tired I am, that if it's possible, I want to spend time with them, that I cherish the memories that I spend time with them. And so if you're not doing that now and you have children, I encourage you as a father to go ahead and take that opportunity to start spending time with them. It is something that they'll remember for the rest of their lives, and it is a modeling opportunity for you to show them the kind of man that you would like your son to be and your daughter to marry. Number 4, affection and physical touch. I know a lot of fathers, especially with daughters, there comes a time where you can't touch them the way you used to be able to. You know, my little 3-year-old girl goes past and I'll pop her on the little behind, as she's going, or I'll squeeze her high up on the legs, because her legs are just so squeezable at 3 years old. And there's going to come a time where I can't squeeze my daughter high up on the leg. That's inappropriate. Or I can't pop her on the butt. That's inappropriate. There comes a time, but there's always a way you can affectionately and appropriately touch your children, even into their adulthood. And I know that a lot of fathers shy away from that as the children get older, especially men and boys. I told my son the other day I will forever kiss him. Forever. No, I don't plant one on his lips, but I kiss him on the cheek at night sometimes, especially if I'm going to be gone on a road trip the next day, and I know when he's going to sleep that he's going to wake up, I'll be gone for several days. I'll kiss him on the cheek. I kiss him on the head a lot. And I've already told him that's something he's going to have to deal with because I love him. And I always want him to understand that I'm there for him. And that he may be a man one day, but he's still my son. Same thing with my daughter. Now, again, she's 3, so there's a lot of physical contact right now. I hold her and I hug her and I caress her when she's upset, and I snuggle with her to get her down at night, and like I said, I squeeze her little legs and her feet, and I kiss her, and that will always be the case. Yes, there will come a time where I have to change up the way I do that so that everything's appropriate, but I will always love on my children, and I think that is a big, big thing. Physical touch and physical contact of appropriate kinds, there's science behind it. It is not just something that is nice. It's something that is essential to a good, healthy relationship. And you want your girl, your little girl, however old she is, you want her when she grows up to find a man that will physically touch her appropriately. You know, obviously the dichotomy of that is different between a man and a woman and a father and a daughter. That's obviously different. But at the same time, you want her to find a man who is able to touch her in a non-sexual way, in a way that says, I just love you and I want to hold you and I want to give you that much needed physical comfort in a non-sexual way, so that she doesn't feel like he just wants one thing every time he touches her. That's a big deal. And you want a man for your daughter that can handle that situation without being having to shy away from it or just be non-affectionate at all. Same thing for your son. You want him to be able to affectionately and appropriately physically touch people, especially the ones he loves, and not be afraid of that, not be awkward about that. Number 5, words of affirmation. I hear so many instances of people who say, especially between fathers and sons, I never heard my dad say I love you. I knew he loved me and he showed me in all kinds of different ways, but he never really felt comfortable coming out to say I love you. Personally, in my family, that is not an issue. My son hears I love you 3 or 4 times a day. Anytime I'm leaving him for the night and I'm tucking him in and giving him a hug and a peck on the cheek or something and saying I'm going to go out on a trip, I love you, big man. It just comes out. He's used to hearing it, I love you, big man. And he's not afraid to tell me back, I love you, Dad. And that is something that is not going to change. No matter how old he gets, I'm always going to tell him I love you, because I do. And I don't want him to feel weirded out by saying that to me. I'm weirded out saying that to my dad, because my dad's not one of those who says I love you very often. And we didn't have the relationship where that could be said every day, and because of that, there's a little bit of a gulf there, and I've told him I love him, and he's told me he loves me, and I think I've said before on another episode that most of the time those transactions happen something on instant messenger or something like that. But, and again, I don't fault him for that, but it's something that I'm aware of, and if you have a good relationship with your children, make sure you're telling them I love you often, so that they can have a model of what they need to be when they grow up and the people that they need to be around when they grow up. And they also need to hear you saying that to your wife. Men, if you're not telling your wife you love them at least 5 times a day, you're not doing it enough. And it needs to be in front of your children. I love you. Obviously, there are things between you and your wife that can't be displayed in front of your children, but I love you can be. And I want to go back actually to the affection, because I didn't mention the physical touch and affection. I didn't mention the husband and wife aspect of it there. They also need to see you holding your wife. My wife and I, especially when I get home from a trip, will embrace and share a kiss, and we don't care who's around. I mean, we're not making out, but I've been away, and I miss her, and I love her, and I tell her that, and I kiss her, and I hold her, and my children see that. Yeah, they're going to go, ugh, yuck. But I want my daughter to marry a man who is not afraid to tell her as many times as she needs to hear it on a daily basis, I love you. Because as much as it's going to kill me to see my daughter walk down the aisle and leave her daddy for another man, as much as that will be painful to me, it will be a blessing if I know that I did my part to help her in her search, so that she had a certain type of man in mind, and I can trust that when she goes from me to him, that she'll have someone who is not afraid to take her in his arms and kiss her and hold her and tell her how much he loves her. That's very important to me. And I think it is of the utmost importance for everybody. So that was number 4, affection and physical touch. And then number 5, we talked about words of affirmation, just being able to tell them how much they mean. And even beyond I love you, go on ahead and tell them whatever comes to mind. Just not only I love you, but I would do anything for you. You know, just, it doesn't, we talked about in my episode, Date Your Wife or Date Your Spouse. I talked about how the honeymoon doesn't have to be over. When the honeymoon is over, it's your fault. Not necessarily the man, but I mean, it's somebody's fault. It's not just time. A marriage can stay vibrant, but you've got to be adamant about doing the things to keep it vibrant. And those are some of the things that you can do. Number 6, attitude and service to others. I won't stick on this very long, but how you treat others, how you respond to others, your attitude of service toward them is a direct reflection onto your children, and they will pick up on it. My son, the other day, when we were riding together, someone cut me off, and before I could say anything, my son called them a moron. Well, first of all, we're Christians, and the Bible says not to do that. That's a no-no. Even if you're not saying something to somebody where they can hear it. You want wholesome words to come out of your mouth, and he's heard me call people moron. I love to say moron. Like this guy that just rode past me with no muffler. If I weren't talking about this, perhaps I would have. No, I wouldn't. He didn't cut me off or anything. I am pretty bad about road rage, though, and I have to curtail that because my kids are with me a lot, and I've known, or I've had situations to where I couldn't say anything. They've heard me saying that. I had to explain, no, Daddy doesn't need to talk like that. Don't mirror what you see, because that was wrong of me to speak that way. So the way you treat others, even out of other people's earshot, and especially your attitude of service toward others. I want my son and my daughter to have a servant's heart. And so in order to do that, I need to model that. So if you've got a child, especially of the age to where they're starting to mimic your actions and your thoughts, model for them an attitude of service towards other people so that they will have that servant's heart. You don't want them to be the kind of person that gets run over as an adult, but having a servant's heart means being meek, and it means being mild, and it means being giving, but it doesn't mean being a doormat. You don't have to train them up that way, but willingly serving others is something that I would like to be an aspect for my children, And that's another thing that I would like my daughter to find in a man. It's another thing that I would like my son to be as a man. And then number 7, I'm going to mention spirituality. Now for me, spirituality would come at the very top of the list, because we're Christians and because spirituality and the Christ-like frame of mind is topmost in importance in our lives, and that's what I want to model. That would really come number 1 for me instead of number 7, but I understand that that may not be in the wheelhouse of some of the people who are listening, so I'll put it down here, but I do want to mention it. If you're a spiritual person, you need to model what that is to your children. We have yet to start our Bible time that I keep saying that we're going to do. I keep saying that we're going to have a Bible time every night, not going to be a huge sermon or anything, but we're going to have a family prayer together, and we're going to maybe read some Bible stories that are geared toward children, 12-year-olds and stuff like that. My son would like to get into apologetics with me and stuff like that, and I've been meaning to set some time aside. But with our busy lives, we find it so hard to put that in action. And here lately, I've been very convicted of that. So I'm preaching to myself right now with spirituality. Be a leader in your home to model what type of person you would like your son to be as a man, and the type of man you would like for your daughter. For us, I want nothing more than a Christian man for my daughter. I know it's her choice. I understand that. But while she's in my house, while I'm up to bat, while I'm modeling what it means to be a man, I want to show her the utmost in a Christian example and a leader in the home. So those are my things that I think that we need to really pay attention to when it comes to modeling what it is to be the man. Again, number 1 was responsibility. Number 2, keeping a check on your language and temper. Number 3, quality time, spending quality time with your children. Number 4, affection and physical touch. Number 5, words of affirmation. Number 6, service to others and attitude towards others. And number 7, spirituality. So if you have anything that you would like to add that I missed, please get in touch with me in the ways that you'll hear about at the end of the episode. And right now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my weekend this past weekend. Today, as this is recorded, it is November the 1st. And I just had the most exciting, wonderful weekend with my wife. We ended up going to Savannah, Georgia, and spending Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in Savannah and Tybee Island. And what happened is we went to Savannah first. We spent the night Wednesday night there. I actually had a free night with the points that I accrue from all my hotel stays. So we stayed there, and we really weren't crazy about the hotel. It was decent, but they charged me $15 just to park at the hotel overnight, which irritated me. If you're listening to this and that's nothing new to you, then bully for you, because I've never stayed in a hotel that actually, on top of everything else, charged you just to park in their parking lot. So that irritated me. And Kayla and I, the prices they were telling me for the next couple of nights were just way too high for this hotel. But it was right in the middle of downtown Savannah, so I understand. It's supply and demand. But she started looking and realized that Tybee Island was only 20 minutes away. So she said, why don't we call up this hotel in Tybee that I found here on the internet and see if they've got any vacancies and how much it will cost for the next couple of nights. So I looked them up and I called them. The price was right. I went ahead and reserved it sight unseen. I didn't go into the rooms first, but I trusted, and the rooms were decent. There was a little bit of a musty smell you had to get used to, but everything was clean, and it was a decent hotel room. The Admiral's Inn, I think it was what it was called. But I had no idea that Tybee Island was so close to Savannah. I had always heard of it as a destination for people to take vacations, but I'd never really heard of Tybee Island being that close. And that was exciting because we spent most of the day, the first day, in Savannah. If you've never been to Savannah, Georgia, you can park in a parking garage and you can spend all day walking around these beautiful Victorian buildings, and there are like 22 garden squares all around Savannah, all weaved through in it. I mean, you go a couple of blocks and you're in another gorgeous old oak Spanish moss hanging garden with a fountain or a big granite monument right in the middle, and benches to sit on and paths to walk around. It's just absolutely out of this world beautiful in Savannah, and the history that goes along with it is amazing. We took a ghost tour on, what night was it? Friday night. We ended up taking a ghost tour. We went back. We went to Tybee Island on Thursday. We checked into our hotel after we did Savannah. We went around, walked all around Savannah, and then we got tired. Then we decided, okay, let's go to the hotel room. I think we might have taken a nap or went and got washed up, and we took a dolphin tour where you go out on a boat and they take you where they know there to be dolphins. And there were dolphins, just wild dolphins everywhere out there, that they were just swimming in schools, and I think they call them pods, right next to the boat. We'd gone on a dolphin tour once before in Panama City, Florida, but there was a tropical storm right off the coast and the dolphins were underwater or whatever. We never saw the dolphins on that tour, but this one guarantees that you'll see dolphins, and they'll give you a free complimentary tour the next time if you don't see dolphins on that trip. But we did. There were dolphins everywhere, and it was absolutely beautiful. And we got pictures of the Cockspur Lighthouse that at high tide is completely submerged into water, and at low tide is only a thin piece of land that goes out to it, and it's just a little small lighthouse. And then of course on Tybee Island they've got the Tybee Island Lighthouse. So we went on the dolphin tour on Thursday. On Friday we spent a lot of time on Tybee, then went back into Savannah that night for the ghost tour, and we took a historical, family-friendly ghost tour. We didn't want anything that was going to be too... We're worried at this time of the year, right? It was a couple of days before Halloween, so we were worried that there might be some of the ghost tours that wanted to do the jump scares and scare you and stuff like that. And my wife's not into that type of thing, and I'm really not either. I'm more into the history. So we took a family-friendly ghost tour that was historical and creepy at the same time, but it was cool. And then on Saturday, we got back up. We toured the Tybee Island Lighthouse, walked up, I think it's either 158 or 178 steps to the top of the lighthouse, and took our photographs. Then went across to the fort, right across from there, right across the road. There's an old battery fort, and that had some neat history in that as well. And so we just had a weekend to ourselves. And while we love our children and couldn't wait to get home to see them, it was a much-needed vacation, and we had a blast. So if you ever get a chance to get down to beautiful, historic, Victorian Savannah, Georgia, absolutely go, especially if you're a history buff. We also ate at Paula Deen's restaurant, and whatever you think of Paula Deen, I love Paula Deen, and I had always wanted to eat at her restaurant, and I did not realize that it was a buffet. When we get in there, there's a buffet. It's 3 stories high. You get assigned to a story, and they say you'll be on the first floor, second floor, third floor, whatever. And they were pretty busy. They weren't packed to the gills. I understand that during the peak season, they can be lined around the corner to get in, but it wasn't this time. We were able to walk right in. They sent us up to the 3rd floor, and there's a buffet on every floor. And it was delicious. So we're planning on going back to Savannah. We're hoping to be able to take a trip in the next few weeks back up there for just a weekend to maybe do some of the Christmas in Savannah. Maybe a couple of weeks before Christmas, go over there and just spend time there with all the Christmas decorations, because everything's so Victorian. You've got this Dickensian feel. Is that how I would say it? It's already that way. So at Christmas, I've looked it up online, and the pictures I've seen have just been gorgeous. So we're going to try to get back, and I suggest that if you ever get an opportunity to get into Savannah, I highly recommend it. And then the last thing I want to do is the positive review for this week. This week's positive review is an author that I never thought I would get into reading his books. His movies are very popular as chick flicks. His books are very popular as romance novels, and that's how I always looked at them, so I didn't think I would ever be interested in reading the works of Nicholas Sparks. However, I picked up a Nicholas Sparks book for a couple of reasons. About 3 different reasons. I needed something to read. Also, I'm writing my own novel, and I wanted to know what made him so popular. Not that I'm trying to mimic his style or anything. I already have a style with my novel, and I already have a plot. I know where it's going. But at the same time, I wanted to know what it was about Nicholas Sparks that made everybody go crazy. When you are trying to be successful at something, you research and you study those who are successful in what you do. There's not many more people as successful as Nicholas Sparks, other than, say, like Stephen King or Dean Koontz. And as far as movies that are made out of the books, Nicholas Sparks and Stephen King are just about it, maybe Danielle Steele. But Nicholas Sparks, I picked up a book. I can't remember what the name of the first one I read was. Dear John. It was Dear John. And I just picked it up because I wanted something to read. I wanted to get back into reading fiction. If I'm going to be a writer, I wanted to constantly be reading other people's writing. And so when I'm not reading a classic like Jules Verne or something, I like to read the things that are popular with other people. And I picked up Nicholas Sparks, and I fell in love. Absolutely. Never thought I would consider myself the type of person who would read what is commonly referred to as a romance novel, but I really don't know that I would consider it, every one of them, as much as a they're romance novels, but they're not Harlequin romance novels. In fact, for the two that I have finished by Nicholas Sparks, I've read Dear John and I've read The Lucky One, because I have a friend who actually played the brother who got killed, is a friend of mine, and he did a little acting, and I wanted to read The Lucky One because I haven't seen the movie yet, and I know I want to see the movie because I want to see my friend in it, and I wanted to read the book first. So I've read those two, and even the love scenes in there, they're not graphic. They are very subdued. They're not like the smut novels that you hear of people reading. They're definitely not 50 Shades of Grey type thing. And what I love, I think, the most about the way Nicholas Sparks develops his characters is you feel them. You fall in love with the characters just like the characters are falling in love with each other. I mean, you feel like you're developing relationships right along with them. It draws you in. He just has a wonderful way of writing that is easy to read and keeps you gripped and keeps you wanting to turn the pages. And he is just a very talented writer. If you never thought you wanted to read romance, but you thought maybe you wanted something kind of mild, go ahead and pick up a Nicholas Sparks book. See if you can get into it. You might be surprised. I never thought I would. And I'll be honest with you, I cried at the end of Dear John. I did. It got me emotional. I won't tell you about the story. There's a movie about it. You can just go watch it. But or better yet, read the book. But it messed with me. I got so involved with those characters that at the end of that book, I wept. I'm a crier anyway. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm a man and I'm a crier. There's another thing you can do. Teach your son that it's okay to cry at the right times. Anyway, that's your positive review for this week, the works of Nicholas Sparks. And I'm going to see if I can find a website that is dedicated to him. So maybe his official website or something, and I'll link to that in the show notes. So do you have anything that you would like to say to me? Would you like to add to some of the notes that I have put forth in this episode or in past episodes? Do you have some stories of your own, some examples that you'd like me to use or just would like to tell me? Or if you'd just like to tell me how the show is affecting you. I will tell you, I hate that I am not where I can pull over and read some feedback, but I got some more feedback from a man named Randy in Kissimmee, Florida. And I got that this weekend, and he was just so very kind and made me feel so good. And I'm going to read his email. I actually like to make sure people are okay with me doing that, so I'm going to get back with him before I do it and make sure he's okay with that. So it's probably good that I'm not somewhere I can pull over and read it. But I will get that feedback out if he gives me the permission to, and I encourage you to as well. And here's how you do it. And I'll stop rambling and let you know how to do it. It's feedback@michaelblackston.com. That's the email address, feedback@michaelblackston.com. That's MICHAELBLACKSTON. There's no E at the end of it. A lot of people like to put an E for Blackstone. That's not It's BLACKSTON. So feedback at michaelblackston.com. I've also got a voicemail line, and I would love to have some people call on the voicemail and let me be able to play some of that on the actual podcast for you. And if you want to do that, it is 706-408-7456. That's 706-408-7456. Other than that, you can just go to the roadnoisepodcast.com website. I've got all kinds of buttons and fun things for you to do, to share me on social media and give me a rating and review on iTunes. That's all right there at roadnoisepodcast.com. I'd love to have you do it. If you're an artist, I'd like to invite you to My Everything Arts. It's my group that I administrate on Facebook. At the moment, it's got just a little over 100 members, and most of them are friends of mine, but a lot of them now I don't know very well, but I'm kind of getting to know. And it's just a community for artists to share their work and give each other encouragement and advice and stuff like that. And I do a group member of the month in which I give a gift and acknowledge an artist who is a member of that website. If you're an artist and you'd like to join that, just go to Facebook and look up My Everything Arts in the groups section, and you'll have to ask to join, but I'm the administrator. Let me know that you heard about it on the Road Noise Podcast, and I'll be glad to let you in. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, I am at Everything Arts. That's all the stuff I'm going to fill you with today. I'm just about to come through Atlanta. I've got to find a place to go to the bathroom, and since I'm about to be hitting all this Atlanta traffic, I probably need to pay more attention to the road. So that's going to be it for this episode. Until episode number 58, thanks for joining me and sitting alongside me in the passenger seat as we learn to live life 1 mile at a time. I'm your host, Michael Blackston. We'll see you next time.